The early morning fog hung low over the valley, curling around jagged rocks and broken trees like a living thing. Every shadow seemed to twitch with hidden threats, every rustle of leaves a possible warning. The platoon moved cautiously, their boots sinking into the damp earth, rifles ready, but the tension in the air was palpable. Somewhere ahead, the enemy lay hidden, unseen but deadly. Lieutenant Harris signaled a halt, scanning the horizon with binoculars. His voice was calm but tight. "Stay alert. They've been setting traps along this ridge." Among the platoon, there was one figure who moved differently. Silent. Precise. Unseen. He carried no shouting bravado, no visible sign of heroics. Yet every step he took was calculated, every breath measured. He was a sniper trained to be the ghost in the chaos, the invisible hand that could shift the tide of battle without a single soul knowing. He crouched atop a ridge, barely visible among the rocks and frost-covered shrubs. His rifle, customized for long-distance accuracy, rested lightly against his shoulder. Through the scope, he scanned the enemy's positions: hidden machine guns, camouflaged snipers, and patrols moving like shadows. Every detail mattered. One mistake could cost lives. The platoon continued to advance, unaware of the silent guardian watching over them. Mines had been planted, tripwires hidden beneath fallen leaves. He spotted them immediately, marking each with a mental note and signaling subtle warnings: a faint whistle, a twig snapped deliberately, a shadow cast in a particular direction. The soldiers followed instinctively, thinking it was luck guiding them, never realizing a single pair of eyes was steering them through danger. Then came the first gunfire. A burst from a concealed enemy machine gun ripped through the morning calm. Soldiers dropped instinctively, scrambling for cover, but a few had strayed too close to a mine. The sniper took his shot. A single, precise round, silent in its impact. One of the enemy gunners collapsed, the weapon now useless. Another attempt at firing was cut short as another shot found its mark. Each kill was precise, merciless, and hidden from the platoon's view. They remained unaware that their survival was owed to someone they didn't even know existed. Hours passed like this, small pockets of enemy resistance appearing and vanishing, the sniper neutralizing threats one by one. Yet with each successful shot came another challenge. Enemy snipers had spotted the patterns, and soon, he was being hunted himself. Every rock, every tree became a potential hiding spot for adversaries who were as skilled and patient as he was. He shifted position silently, moving along a ridge, his eyes never leaving the unfolding battlefield. The platoon edged closer to the enemy stronghold, a small hilltop bunker fortified with sandbags and barbed wire. The soldiers moved cautiously, but without knowledge of the traps he had disarmed moments before. The sniper allowed himself a brief glance through the scope. Harris, unaware of the unseen protector, was leading his men bravely but into a deadly zone. It was time for a critical decision. Two enemy patrols were closing in, converging near the platoon's path. A miscalculation could trap the soldiers in a crossfire. He took a deep breath, adjusting his scope. One by one, he eliminated the threats, each shot silent, invisible, precise. The patrols fell without warning, their weapons useless, their presence erased from the battlefield. By noon, the platoon reached the enemy stronghold's perimeter. Casualties were remarkably low, considering the terrain and enemy strength. Harris looked around, baffled. How did we make it through without losing more men? He couldn't know that a single pair of unseen eyes had guided every step, neutralizing every hidden threat, saving lives without ever being noticed. Yet the danger was far from over. The bunker remained heavily fortified, and reinforcements were expected at any moment. The sniper scouted ahead, calculating angles, wind, distance, and enemy patterns. Every movement was critical. A single misstep would expose him, and without his cover, the platoon would face annihilation. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the valley, and the sniper took his position on a high rock. He had spotted the enemy commander moving between the trenches, barking orders. Neutralizing him would throw the entire stronghold into chaos, but it required absolute precision. One shot, one chance. He steadied his breathing, aimed carefully, and fired. The commander fell silently, unseen by anyone but the sniper. Within moments, the enemy soldiers were confused, disorganized, and vulnerable. The platoon seized the opportunity, rushing the bunker, storming the position, and taking control with minimal losses. As dusk approached, the battlefield fell silent. Smoke curled from the destroyed enemy positions, and the surviving soldiers tended to their wounded. Harris looked around, searching for the sniper who had saved them. There was no one. No footprints, no shadow, no trace of the silent hero who had guided them through a deadly day. The sniper observed from a distance, hidden behind a ridge. His face was calm, expression unreadable. He had completed his mission, saved lives, and remained invisible. The war continued, battles yet to be fought, but for today, he had made the difference. Unseen, unheard, but unforgettable in impact. As night fell, he disappeared into the shadows, blending with the darkness of the valley. The soldiers would tell stories of luck, strategy, and bravery, but never of the silent sniper who had protected them. He was a ghost, a shadow, a guardian whose identity would remain a secret. Yet in the quiet of the night, he allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The war would rage on, but the sniper knew he would continue his mission, unseen, unrecognized, but always present when the line between life and death demanded it. Deadly silence. The night had fallen thick over the forest, an almost tangible darkness that swallowed sound and shadow alike. Only the distant rumble of artillery and the occasional pop of a sniper's rifle broke the stillness. The platoon had been assigned a reconnaissance mission near enemy supply lines, a territory crawling with hidden ambushes and traps. Yet none of them knew the invisible guardian moving ahead, threading through the underbrush like a ghost. He advanced with measured steps, every leaf and twig memorized for sound. His eyes scanned for motion, enemy scouts, booby traps, even the glint of a knife reflecting moonlight. The rifle was always ready, mounted with a suppressor that could end a life before it even realized it was threatened. From a ridge above the path, he spotted a convoy moving along a narrow dirt track. Trucks laden with ammunition and food, heavily guarded by patrols. Taking them out would cripple the enemy's operations for days, but it was a risk, too many guards, too close to the platoon's position. A miscalculation would expose both him and the soldiers. He found a vantage point atop a fallen tree, using it to blend with the branches. Through the scope, he counted the guards, their patrol rhythm, and the convoy's speed. One well-placed shot, he calculated, could create chaos, forcing them to retreat or scatter. He exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The first vehicle stopped abruptly, its engine sputtering to silence as the driver slumped over the wheel. Another guard dropped as a bullet found its mark in the distance. Within moments, the convoy was in disarray, drivers abandoning vehicles, guards scrambling, ammunition spilling onto the ground. All of it happened unseen by the platoon. They later credited chance and good timing, never knowing a single sniper had orchestrated the disruption. but the risk was far from over. A second patrol approached from the forest edge, alerted by the commotion. The sniper ducked behind a mound of earth, heart steady, nerves focused. One wrong breath and he would be spotted. He adjusted his scope, anticipating the patrol's pattern. A single series of silent shots incapacitated 3 soldiers before they could react. The remaining men fled, confusion spreading like wildfire. Meanwhile, the platoon moved forward, guided subtly by his signals. A shadow shifted, a hand placed on a tree branch, a faint whistle in the distance. Each gesture invisible to the enemy but unmistakable to those under his protection. They avoided a minefield he had already scouted, crossed a stream without triggering hidden tripwires, and navigated through dense underbrush that could easily conceal enemies. Suddenly, a flare lit the night sky. Enemy reinforcements had been alerted, searching the area with flashlights and shouts. The sniper realized the window for action was closing. To ensure the platoon's safety, he needed to draw attention away from them. He set a small explosive near a cluster of abandoned vehicles and detonated it. The resulting explosion lit up the darkness, sending patrols scrambling toward the noise. The platoon passed through the area moments later, unharmed, and unaware of the imminent danger they had narrowly avoided. The sniper moved silently to a new position, surveying the terrain. Ahead, he spotted a lone enemy sniper lying prone on a ridge overlooking the platoon's route. A direct confrontation was inevitable, compromise was not an option. He crept closer, using every bit of cover, fallen logs, rocks, shadows to approach the enemy. The opposing sniper had not detected him yet, focused on the platoon below. With a steady hand and controlled breath, the sniper fired. The enemy rifle dropped, silent as the night, and the threat was neutralized without a sound. By dawn, the platoon reached their objective, a ruined farmhouse used as an observation post. The enemy supply line had been sabotaged, and the platoon's report would contain little detail of the near disasters they had avoided. Harris looked over his men, exhausted but unscathed. "Well done, everyone," he said, not realizing that one invisible presence had kept them alive through the night. The sniper observed from a distant hill, blending into the early morning mist. No one acknowledged him, no one could thank him, yet he felt no need. His mission was complete. Lives had been saved, objectives secured, and the enemy left bewildered. He was a ghost, a shadow in a battlefield where recognition was irrelevant. As the platoon set up their temporary camp, he scouted ahead for potential threats. Enemy movements had increased, indicating that the region was under heightened surveillance. He realized that this reconnaissance was only the beginning. The next mission would require him to navigate even more dangerous territory, relying solely on his skills and instincts. Throughout the morning, he neutralized a few isolated threats: a guard attempting to flank the platoon, a hidden cache of explosives ready to be triggered, a pair of enemy scouts. Each act was swift, silent, and invisible. The platoon would later interpret these moments as luck, but the sniper knew better. Luck had nothing to do with survival in a battlefield defined by shadows. By noon, the area was secure. The platoon rested, tending to minor injuries, eating, and preparing reports. Yet the sniper remained vigilant, perched on a ridge overlooking the farm. He scanned the horizon, calculating enemy reinforcements, potential ambush points, and escape routes. Every detail mattered. One misstep could reverse the success of the past night. Hours later, a courier arrived, reporting increased enemy activity in the surrounding hills. Harris planned a daytime patrol to intercept, unaware of the dangers that lay ahead. The sniper's eyes narrowed. he would have to cover them again, ensuring that no harm came to the men who depended on his unseen presence. Night fell again, and with it came the same tension, the same silent patrols, the same invisible guardianship. The sniper moved with fluid precision, always one step ahead of danger, always ensuring the platoon's survival. By dawn, the mission would be complete, the supply lines disrupted, and the platoon unharmed. Yet the sniper remained unknown, unrecognized, unseen. His actions, though critical, would be recorded only in subtle victories, lives saved, and enemy plans foiled. And as he melted into the forest shadows, he allowed himself a brief thought: the battlefield may be loud, chaotic, and brutal, but silence could save lives, and in his hands, silence was a weapon stronger than any gunfire. Edge of shadows. Dawn broke with a crimson streak across the sky, painting the valley in ominous hues. The air smelled of smoke and wet earth, the remnants of last night's chaos still lingering. The platoon had received intelligence of an enemy communications post in a ruined church on a nearby ridge. Capturing it would cripple enemy coordination, but it was heavily guarded. The mission was perilous, yet the soldiers were unaware that a shadow already moved ahead, silently assessing every possible danger. The sniper crouched atop a jagged rock, surveying the terrain. Broken walls, crumbling towers, and shattered stained glass windows provided natural cover for both attackers and defenders. Through his scope, he noted the enemy's patrol routes, their rotations, and a series of cleverly hidden tripwires. One false step would trigger an alarm and could cost dozens of lives. He descended silently into a narrow path leading to the church, using the ruins as cover. A lone sentry patrolled the perimeter, pacing methodically. Timing was everything. The sniper waited, holding his breath, observing the guard's rhythm. With a swift, precise motion, he neutralized the sentry without a sound. The man crumpled behind a broken wall, unseen by his comrades. Inside the church courtyard, enemy troops moved in pairs, communicating through hand signals. Mines had been planted along the main approach, but the sniper marked them mentally, signaling the platoon subtly with shadow movements and whispered cues. They followed, oblivious to the deadly obstacles he had identified. Suddenly, a scout spotted movement near the ruins, a stray cat, perhaps, or an enemy informant. The sniper held his position, ready to intervene. Moments later, a hidden guard appeared, aiming his rifle directly at the approaching platoon. The sniper's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot, perfectly timed, and the threat was gone, leaving no trace of the intervention. The platoon pressed forward, reaching the church steps. Harris signaled for a breach, unaware that the sniper had already scouted the inside, identifying choke points and hidden defenders. The soldiers stormed the building, meeting minimal resistance, as the sniper's previous eliminations and subtle guidance had paved a nearly safe path. Inside, chaos erupted as a group of enemy soldiers tried to regroup. They scrambled for cover, but every angle they assumed safe had already been accounted for. The sniper, positioned on a distant rooftop overlooking the church, took precise shots to neutralize the most immediate threats. Each move was silent, surgical, and unseen. The platoon would later recall it as an unusually easy victory, never realizing the extent of the unseen orchestration. Then came the greatest risk. The enemy commander himself appeared in the upper tower, rifle in hand, scanning for threats. The sniper calculated distance, wind, and trajectory, understanding that one misfire could reveal his position and compromise the entire operation. Heart steady, he exhaled slowly, and fired. The commander fell, collapsing into the shadows of the tower. The remaining troops were thrown into disarray, their cohesion shattered. The platoon secured the church, taking the enemy communications equipment and gathering intelligence. Harris looked over his men with pride, though he remained puzzled by the minimal casualties. "It almost feels too easy," he muttered. Yet he could not have imagined the invisible presence that had paved their path through danger. Outside, the sniper remained on the rooftop, scanning the horizon for any approaching reinforcements. Enemy forces were regrouping in the distance, likely aware of the lost commander and disrupted communications. He noted their movements, already planning escape routes and potential ambushes. The next steps would be critical, and one wrong choice could cost lives. As he prepared to descend, a pair of enemy snipers emerged from a ridge across the valley, their scopes trained on the church. The sniper adjusted his position, using broken walls and shadowed angles to remain hidden. A deadly duel ensued, each waiting for the other to make a mistake. The tension was electric, every second a potential death sentence. One by one, he neutralized the enemy snipers, using angles and patience to remain unseen. Each shot was decisive, precise, and silent. By the time the platoon had finished securing the church, the rooftop and surrounding ridges were clear of immediate threats. The sniper melted into the shadows, ready to guide the soldiers back safely. The retreat was perilous. Enemy reinforcements were closing in, patrolling the forest paths and ridges. Mines, tripwires, and ambush points dotted the landscape. Yet the sniper navigated the terrain with unmatched skill, guiding the platoon safely through each trap. His signals were subtle: a shift in shadow, a flick of light reflecting off a rock, a soft whistle carried by the wind. The soldiers followed instinctively, unaware that an invisible guardian led them. By nightfall, the platoon returned to their temporary base, exhausted but unharmed. Harris and his men set up defenses and prepared reports of the mission. To them, it was a daring but manageable success. To the sniper, it was another day where lives had been saved by unseen precision, calculated risks, and relentless vigilance. As the moon rose over the forest, he perched on a distant ridge, observing the valley below. Enemy forces were regrouping, communication lines partially restored, but he already anticipated their next moves. The mission had succeeded, but the war was far from over. He would continue to operate from the shadows, unseen and unrecognized, yet always present when lives hung in the balance. The sniper's reflection was brief, almost meditative. No accolades, no recognition, no medals. Only the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had made the difference. Silence, after all, was the truest measure of his skill. And as the night deepened, he disappeared into the forest once more, ready to face the next challenge, the next mission, and the next test of unseen courage. Final shadow. The sun had barely risen when the alert came through. An enemy ambush had been set along the valley's only supply route, a choke point the platoon had to traverse to reach their next base. Reports indicated hundreds of enemy troops, fortified positions, and heavy artillery. Casualties were expected, yet the soldiers had no idea that a single unseen figure was already orchestrating their survival. The sniper moved ahead silently, scaling a cliff that overlooked the valley. From this vantage, he could survey enemy positions, patrol rotations, and even note the placement of hidden explosives. Every calculation mattered: wind speed, trajectory, elevation, and timing would determine life or death. A single misstep could unravel everything. Below, the platoon began its march. Harris led with his usual courage, unaware of the invisible guardian above. The enemy had prepared overlapping fields of fire, with machine guns and snipers strategically positioned. The valley seemed like a death trap. Yet the sniper had already analyzed escape routes, cover points, and optimal firing positions. The first volley of bullets tore through the silence. Soldiers dove for cover, returning fire in desperate bursts. The sniper's first action was to neutralize the enemy's main machine gun nest. One precise shot, and the gunners were down before anyone could spot the source. He moved swiftly, taking a second position to suppress an advancing squad. The platoon, still unaware, found themselves able to advance with reduced risk. Then came the heaviest challenge. An enemy commander, a notorious strategist, appeared atop a ridge, directing fire with deadly precision. His gaze seemed to sweep the battlefield, anticipating moves and exploiting weaknesses. The sniper knew this was the moment that would define the mission. If the commander remained, the platoon would face near certain annihilation. Using shadows and natural cover, the sniper repositioned. He crawled through broken terrain, rocks cutting his palms, his breath measured and silent. Through the scope, he lined up the commander, factoring in every environmental variable. One shot. No margin for error. The bullet found its mark, and the commander collapsed into the valley below. Confusion erupted among enemy ranks, giving the platoon a fighting chance. But the valley was still deadly. Hidden snipers, tripwires, and mines littered the path. The sniper moved like a phantom, eliminating threats before they could strike. A pair of enemy snipers appeared near a boulder field, but he had anticipated them, dispatching each with precise, silent shots. Explosives were disarmed, patrols redirected, and the platoon's route cleared. The soldiers pressed forward, finally recognizing some unusual patterns of survival. Harris frowned, noticing how traps and attacks seemed to miss them time and again. He glanced around but saw no one. "Maybe, we've just been lucky," he muttered, a mixture of awe and disbelief in his voice. The sniper was far from done. As the platoon approached the valley exit, the enemy unleashed their final defense, a heavily fortified bunker overlooking the route, bristling with machine guns and artillery. The soldiers hesitated, caught in a deadly crossfire. From a hidden ridge, the sniper assessed the situation. This was the ultimate test. Every shot had to count. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and the platoon would be trapped in a massacre. He adjusted his scope, accounted for the sun's glare, the wind, and the distant artillery vibrations, and fired. One by one, enemy gun positions fell silent. Artillery crews abandoned their posts. The final line of defense crumbled before it could inflict maximum damage. The platoon surged forward, seizing the bunker and securing the route. Harris finally caught sight of the sniper, briefly, atop a distant ridge. A shadow, barely visible against the dawn sky, raised a hand in acknowledgement before disappearing into the cliffs. Harris blinked, and the figure was gone. Who was that? He couldn't finish the question. No one could. By late afternoon, the valley was secure. The platoon had suffered minimal casualties, their mission completed against impossible odds. Soldiers celebrated, praised each other, and recounted their narrow escapes. Yet the silent hero remained unseen, his identity a mystery, his presence known only through the lives he had saved. The sniper finally allowed himself a moment of rest. Leaning against a rock, he surveyed the valley now calm and quiet. The mission was over, yet he knew the war would continue, threats would arise, and battles would demand his unseen intervention. Recognition meant nothing to him, survival, precision, and duty were all that mattered. In the fading light, he reflected on the countless lives that had passed through danger unscathed because of his unseen guidance. Soldiers would speak of luck, strategy, and courage, but never of the shadow that had steered them through death. And yet, that was enough. Silence, invisibility, and unwavering vigilance had defined his existence, and in the end, that was the truest form of heroism. As night settled over the valley, he disappeared into the darkness, ready for the next challenge. The battlefield might roar with gunfire and chaos, but somewhere, always, a shadow watched, a single pair of eyes calculated, and a rifle waited silently, protecting those who would never know the hand that had saved them. The war would continue, but the silent hero had proven one truth: courage does not always demand recognition, and sometimes, the greatest bravery is found in the shadows.